A very warm welcome to this course on educational dialogue and facilitation. Welcome to week 1. You will have videos like this from me each week where I will describe the thematic focus for the week and I will draw on research, evidence, and tools where possible. I've tried to keep these videos as brief as I could, which is a challenge for me, but it's just so that you can spend the majority of your time in this course with the materials and the readings and the resources and really reflecting on their applicability within your own setting. I'll also be linking to other really helpful videos or podcasts, readings, resources below in the read section. So make sure that you take the time to check those out. Each week, I also have various activities for you to do and discussion forum tasks as well. So do make sure to take a look at those. I've really tried to balance the flexibility that an online course like this should afford with interactive elements. So I would really encourage you to take advantage of those in order to learn from your peers and to reflect together on your practice. I think you'll get more out of the course that way. Also, just a friendly reminder to complete your registration and consent form, which I've linked to below this video. So without further ado, let's get to our week 1 content. In this week's video, we'll be discussing the role of the facilitator, drawing on the findings of a recent study by Hennessy and colleagues, which shows the importance of the role of the facilitator in improving dialogic practices and of teacher collaboration in sustaining impact. We will also be discussing possible facilitation models, as well as successes and challenges as seen by other facilitators. This week, your objective is really just to take the time to reflect on what you want to get out of your facilitation in order for you to articulate your aims. This will serve you very well as a jumping off point for the rest of the course. This course is best taken prior to your intended facilitation, but if you do want to convene your colleagues at the same time as taking the course, I would recommend including them in some of these discussions. Talk to them about the aims of your facilitation and get their thoughts and their insights on it. Or you can talk to them about potential challenges that you're envisioning and see if they have other ones for you to consider. You can collaborate on the model. So, what actually is a facilitator? By facilitator, I refer to someone who takes a leadership role through coordinating and supporting other practitioners in their setting in developing their dialogic practices. You, as a facilitator, will lead and support your colleagues in gaining a better understanding of what educational dialogue is, how to apply it to their practice, and how to conduct reflective inquiries in order to continuously and critically explore their practices and look for areas of improvement. As facilitators, you will likely have familiarity with the principles and the practice of educational dialogue, and you should hopefully be enthusiastic about the benefits of a dialogic approach. As facilitators, you should also have a willingness to continue developing your own practice and learning alongside your colleagues. And you should have a strategic and a flexible plan for support on hand at different stages of your colleagues' inquiries, and also be responsive to requests. You're best placed to make an impact in your setting because you're local to the setting. You understand its unique needs and the challenges of your colleagues and the challenges of the teaching and learning environment in which you work. The role of a local facilitator emerged as critical during that study that I referenced already by Hennessy and colleagues, who are part of the TSETA group. This study aimed to understand whether and how practitioner-led inquiry can offer a sustainable and a scalable way of developing dialogic practices. This study I've put the link to. It's quite long. I think that there's 42 pages or something like that. So I don't expect you to read it all this week, but do reference it throughout the weeks because it is so helpful for you as you begin this journey as a facilitator to look back on and to consider, because it offers different areas of success and different challenges that you can help plan and mitigate for. And I do draw on the findings not only in this video, but also throughout the weeks to come. So you will see me reference it quite a bit. I think now it will be helpful for us to review possible facilitation models and also to think a little bit through what the role of the facilitator typically involves. Now, to start it off, one thing that you'll hear me repeat quite often is that there is no one model of facilitation. The resources and the templates that were developed for this course are meant to be used just as guidance or possible tools to draw on, but definitely not as a rigid structure for you to plug your content into. In the trials with facilitators and including my own pilot research, it was very clear that they operated differently depending on their settings and their context. Each facilitator would have a very different model and also a different level of scaffolding and support that they provided to their colleagues. Some, for example, would have more intensive involvement at certain stages of the inquiry process and then little to no support at other stages. So therefore, we have no fixed recommended structure to follow, which may be a bit difficult, but we do provide content and templates, and they can serve you as guidance to be adapted depending on your setting and also depending on the aims of your facilitation. That's really how you will sustain your impact, is contextualizing that and adapting the templates and the tools to what will work for you and for your colleagues. I will just also recommend that the facilitation plan that you develop over the next 6 weeks remains living and flexible and very open to changes depending on the feedback that you receive from your colleagues. So while the study found that facilitators worked in very different ways in their varied settings, the typical approach was for facilitators to lead their colleagues in selecting an inquiry focus and planning the activity or lesson, advising on the recording of data and their interpretation of the results. And we'll be talking through how to go about all of these things in the weeks to come, by the way. So there's no pressure to recognize exactly how you'll do that at this point. And also, facilitators arranged for their colleagues to get together regularly as a group for peer discussion of the progress and outcomes of their individual inquiries, and devised a timetable for this at the very first meeting or workshop that they held with participants so that they knew what to expect, so that they were able to really create a schedule that they knew would work for the different competing demands of their colleagues' time and their time as well. The visual that you can see here is taken from the study, and it shows how facilitator support was seen to particularly lead to their colleagues having a comprehensive understanding of dialogic learning, focusing and conducting their inquiries and sharing their outcomes, which of course we know generates a better understanding of dialogic teaching. The level of support that you as facilitators will provide to your colleagues is completely dependent on your group and on your setting, and you will need to decide when and how to offer support, and conducting a needs assessment will really help you determine these things, and that'll be a very good place to start. And we will be talking a little bit more about needs assessments in week 3. You may plan to facilitate alone. This is the more common approach, but it is worth noting that in the trial there were examples of facilitators collaborating in the same setting and sharing out the responsibilities. The study found a number of factors that contributed to successful facilitation, and these are really helpful to consider prior to developing a facilitation plan. Firstly, facilitators were familiar with dialogic principles and practice and could see and articulate the benefits of dialogic approaches for student learning. They were then able to use this knowledge and enthusiasm to promote teacher buy-in, which facilitators noted was critical for success. As one facilitator said, "I think that once teachers realize the power of just changing the way you maybe ask questions or changing the way that students ask questions, it could be really quite a wow moment." Facilitators noted that they saw success for securing buy-in through running an initial face-to-face workshop with their colleagues, rather than just giving them a lot of reading materials about educational dialogue. I think that can be quite overwhelming, especially for someone who isn't familiar with the principles of educational dialogue. And so having that face-to-face workshop allowed for a bit of peer reflection, questions and answers, and they were able to pick and choose the materials that they knew their colleagues would really benefit from. Secondly, facilitators had personal and professional motivations for facilitation. The truth is that you really do need to be motivated to facilitate in order to justify the time required to adapt the materials, to convene your colleagues, and to offer ongoing support and mentoring. In some cases, TSETA was integrated into professional learning with accreditation, and teachers' reflective inquiries were also linked to formal appraisal. And that might be something to consider if it's a possibility in your setting. Additionally, one facilitator in Pakistan in the trial described their motivation is using TSETA as an opportunity to challenge the traditional teaching methodologies in their school. So when you're developing your plan, it will be really important to articulate what you want out of this, what your driving force is, so that you can remind yourself of that when you encounter various roadblocks. Third, facilitators were strategic and flexible in planning their support and the scaffolding needed for their colleagues. In terms of what that support actually looked like, one facilitator described her role as explaining dialogic teaching at the start and helping participants to make connections between their practice and the strategies and the materials in TSETA, then holding some informal meetings to discuss participants' doubts or questions about the materials, and then guiding them to choose the materials that would be most useful and completing some of these templates with them and supporting them in carrying out video recordings. Planning the support needed will be strengthened through conducting a needs assessment and thinking very carefully about what model is right for you and for your setting. This should include the balance of support that is needed between providing a structured framework, but also letting teachers work autonomously. This balance was summarized by one facilitator as follows. She's talking here about her role and what it involves. So one part of her role is to equip teachers from a distance and let them work with something themselves so that they take it on board and they become they become fairly autonomous in how they handle that. But the second is also to give a structured framework whereby they can see a project develop over a bit of time. And in doing that, you kind of have to have these set times factored into their work schedule, factored into the school timetable to support that to happen. Further successful practice included facilitators negotiating with their institutions or other stakeholders for some dedicated time for inquiries, setting up regular meetings to offer participants structured opportunities for dialogue and for critical reflection with peers, and securing leadership support and proposing a whole institution approach. Now for the challenges. Interviews with the study participants elicited a number of challenges facilitators faced. It's worth knowing about and planning methods of mitigating these challenges as part of your intended model. So first, facilitators found it challenging to manage the diverse needs, hopes, and expectations of their colleagues. Secondly, it was challenging for facilitators to contextualize and translate the materials for local accessibility and needs. A big part of their role was to adjust the language and other aspects of the TSETA materials to be accessible and to be relevant in different educational settings. Third, it will come as no surprise that time pressure was acknowledged as a common challenge for facilitators to provide sufficient support in regular meetings with participants and keep that momentum going, while acknowledging, of course, the limited time available for everyone involved. It proved important to allow participants to set their own timescales and their own meeting schedules. Throughout the next few weeks, we'll discuss more specific guidance, good practice, potential challenges when it comes to supporting your colleagues and developing their practices during specific activities. And next week, the focus will be on revisiting some of the theories and the impact of educational dialogue. And so that is going to look at really creating that teacher buy-in that we know is so critical. We'll also consider what information to share and how best to do that. So that's it for the video component for this week, but further reading and materials and resources and a template has been provided below. So do make sure that you take a look at that and that look at the activities and the discussion forum contributions for this week. You can scroll down to get started. Please also just reach out to me anytime or your course peers if you have any questions. And I will see you in Module 2.